Hi, everybody, and welcome to Boychoir Banter. My name is Jason Alexander Holmes, and I'm the artistic director of the Cincinnati Boy Choir. I'll introduce these fine folks that you'll see around me in just a second. Just want to tell everybody what the goal is of this boy. Hold on, I had to mute the YouTube because it was driving me crazy because I could hear myself. All right, going back to what we were talking about. Our goal tonight is to just, and for all of the Boy Choir banter sessions, is to spend some time talking about the things that we kind of gloss over during rehearsal because we don't really have time to really dig into them. So our first conversation tonight is called The Life of a Performer. So I've assembled several of my friends who work in the world of performing just to kind of hear a little bit about what they do and how they do it, and some highs and lows and all of that good stuff. So let me introduce everyone right now. First, we have Bernard Holcomb, tenor. And now we have Brian Giebler, also a tenor.
Hi.
And we have Jim Cornelison, also a tenor.
Hello.
We have Nate Bachhuber, the Director of Artistic Planning and Administration for the Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra and the May Festival Chorus.
Hello.
And finally, also a tenor, we have Robert Lomax.
Ta-da!
As a bass baritone, I'm really so not comfortable being surrounded by so many tenors. Thank God for Zoom. We don't have to do this in person or anything like that. Okay. So this conversation is for any kids who are interested in being a performer when you grow up, if you're thinking of doing this as a living or even as a hobby. It's also for adults who like to kind of peer behind the scenes and to see what's going on. This is meant to be an interactive conversation, so if you're watching on YouTube, you can use the comments for submitting your questions that you have for any of our panelists. Okay, with that, let's get into the conversation. Let's start with Nate. Nate, can you tell us a little bit about your work with performers?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you mentioned, I'm on the administrative side of the performing arts. I'm the Director of Artistic Planning, and in that role, my job is really to help facilitate the conversations about what ends up happening on stage. I work with the staff of the organization, the Cincinnati Symphony or the May Festival, and I work with the music director or principal conductor and guest artists. I work with artist managers to find and create programs to create the kind of season offerings for these organizations, and we also do commissioning of new works. That's something that I really enjoy and being a part of, and working with composers to make those things happen. And then in the administrative part of this, I help to make sure that all of those pieces come together with all of the necessary parts of that, from employment and contracts to travel and logistics. I work with my colleagues to make sure that happens. Another part that kind of doesn't always get talked about this role is I'm an ambassador within the organization for my colleagues. My job really that I have is to think about how we talk about what's happening on our stage, and to help my marketing department colleagues or my philanthropy and development colleagues to understand what the audiences will be experiencing, so they can help to do their part in making all of the parts of a performance season work. So that's where I am now.
Great, thank you. Bernard, tell us a little bit about your work.
Yes, so I am an opera singer. I started off in church when I was a little boy. And so I went to the Detroit Public Schools, and I was educated back in the 80s. The Detroit Public Schools had a great public school music program. So I learned how to play the violin and the guitar and the saxophone. So I was exposed to classical music, and that's how I ended up becoming a classical singer.
Great. And Jim, let's hear about your career.
Well, I didn't really start singing until, the last semester of my high school, career. What do you call that? The last semester I needed one more to graduate. So I took jazz choir. And then when I went to college, I joined the choir. but I did play piano a little bit. After my first year, the conductor of the local symphony sat me down and asked me if I was serious about music. I said, yeah, I think so. I like it. And he said, well, you're not a very good piano player. He said, you should think about studying voice. So I was kind of a small town guy, didn't really know what that meant to study voice. I mean, you could either sing or you couldn't, as far as I was concerned. So that was when I was 19. I started studying voice, and then eventually went to graduate school at Indiana, and then made my living singing opera up until 2007. But then my life took a funny turn. I actually did real estate for about 4 years. But in 08, 09, the Chicago Blackhawks asked me to sing all the national anthems for their hockey team. And so that turned into 3 Stanley Cup victories within 5 years, and some major international sporting events, the Bears openers, the Bears Packers Western Conference Finals, Ryder Cup in 2012, just a number of things that just kind of catapulted the demand for me to be at these events and singing the national anthem. So now I'll do this year maybe 175, but on a busier year, closer to 200 anthems a year. And then most recently, I 3 years ago sang Back Home Again in Indiana at the Indianapolis 500, which Jim Nabors had done for 32 years. And they asked me back, so I'm going on my 4th year now of singing Back Home Again in Indiana for the Indianapolis 500, which is a tremendous honor and just wonderful thing to be a part of. That's what I do.
Wow, cool, thank you. So Robert, let's hear from you now. About your work.
Well, Robert Lomax, I'm a singer as well, but in my daytime profession, I'm a deputy sheriff with the Hamilton County Sheriff's Department. Music has been such a wonderful inspiration in my life, and in preparing for this talk, I was just thinking about how much choral music has just been a part of my life. I mean, from the age of 5, I've been singing in choirs and in my church choir, and then I went to middle school, and I was astounded by what was going on with the chorus and got involved with that. And high school, president of the choir for 4 years, and then I decided, well, maybe I could make a living out of this because I was okay with it, and went to college and got my undergrad degree, and it was just a lot of fun, and how music was just played a wonderful role in my life. And my life did take a switch 9/11 when the economy went and things like that happened, and I'm where I'm at right now, just enjoying life and enjoying music, and getting opportunities to sing with the symphony and with the May Festival chorus all throughout the year, and it's been great.
Thank you for that, Robert. I wanted to be sure to include you in the conversation, Robert, because one thing that I really want all of our boy choir members and young singers to know is that there's so many different ways to be a musician, to be musical as an adult. So thank you for that story. And same thing, Jim, going from singing in opera and then having a different career turn and now singing the national anthem. I think those are really unique ways of being musicians. Brian, let's go to you now and talk a little bit about your work.
Of course. So I grew up with a music teacher as a mother. And so I was given piano lessons and voice lessons growing up, even though I might have fought them all through grade school. And I was also in a children's choir myself for 7 years in middle school and high school, which I actually quit Boy Scouts for.
Yes. No.
Right?
No shade, Boy Scouts. No.
So I ended up going to Eastman for my undergrad in vocal performance, which is where I met Jason. I can tell you a lot of embarrassing stories about our times together.
None of the questions on our list have anything.
Those can come in the comments on YouTube.
There you go.
And then got my master's at University of Michigan, and I've been pursuing a career for the last 7 years as an opera singer, basically doing a lot of early music, doing oratorio and a couple of new music pieces with different opera companies and whatnot. And actually am releasing my first solo album on Bridge Records in 4 weeks on July 3rd.
Awesome. What's the title of that album so that folks can find it?
Yeah, of course. It's called A Lad's Love, and it is all repertoire from the early 1900s. It's Ivor Gurney, Benjamin Britten, all British composers, British poets, and it's with a string quartet, piano, and a countertenor. So
Nice, cool. Well, I will certainly look for that. Awesome. Jim, can you talk? You started talking a little bit about this. Tell us a little bit about the experiences that kind of led to your current work.
With the Blackhawks, right?
Right, or just as a performer in general. Like, what you started talking about high school, and then yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, I grew up in a musical family in that my mom was singing all the time, and we'd go on road trips or something. You know, always singing. We'd sing on road trips, and my dad played piano and an accordion, but he was in a shipwreck in World War II, and he'd been burned badly on his body. So they did skin grafts on his hands, so he would typically play for 15 minutes and get frustrated and quit. But whenever he would do it, the four of us, my brothers and sisters and I, would be just really excited and into it. And I started playing trombone, I started playing piano, and it was just something I loved to do. It was a way of processing emotion. And yeah, when I went to college, I didn't really know what I wanted to do with myself. I was not an overachiever in high school by any stretch. And so I went to college and I took choir because it was fun, easy humanities credits. And, you know, I can't say it was for all the right reasons, but I was taking piano and I took some other music classes, and nothing had ever really touched me or moved me or helped me deal with life and that processing of emotions that I mentioned, like music. So I can remember the first time I heard Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata. A friend played it for me. I was 16 or 17. And at the time, I was listening to Van Halen and AC/DC and the Scorpions and all that stuff. Loved it, you know, Foreigner, whoever that guy else was on top of the world at that time. Ancient history to you kids.
I was like, who? No.
But I remember the first time I heard Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata, and you get to that third movement where you know the pianist is just on a tear, and it just sent me through the roof. I thought it was like the most incredible thing I'd ever heard, which up to that point had probably been Eddie Van Halen playing Eruption on his guitar, and that just ignited this exploration into classical music that I just find a depth in it that you simply can't find in a 4, 5, 6 instrument group, no matter how good they are.
I see. Nate, why don't you tell us? Thank you, Jim. Sorry, Nate. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your kind of formative experiences?
Sure, and I'll try to do it quick because I feel like I've taken so many twists and turns in music and ended up back in music. But I also came from a family that valued music, and my mom actually went to college as a violist, but her dad wouldn't let her study viola, and she was from Southern California, so she studied math. But then as a child, she wanted to encourage me and my siblings to do whatever we felt was important to us. So for me, one of the first things was being in a boy choir, and I was in the Appleton Boy Choir in Appleton, Wisconsin, which is still going strong. It's a fantastic group, and to be honest, one of the things that I was most interested in was I heard that they got to travel around the world, and said, wait a second. As a 9-year-old, or 8-year-old, I think I was like, wait, I want to travel. So they said, well, you have to audition to do that. So okay, whatever. And I did, exactly. and that was the beginning of it, and that took me into studying music more seriously later in life, and ended up studying in conservatory. I went to the Curtis Institute of Music in Philadelphia and wanted to be an opera singer. And you know, part of that for me was interesting because I was okay, I was good, but I also looked at my own talent and what made me happy about music. And for me, it was helping to make music happen. And I said, you know, I might not be able to have the career that I want, that I dream about. And I have so much respect for people who have more conviction and need drive to have that. I said, I think that I might be able to be a part of this music thing in a different way. And I always loved writing. I loved poetry. And I said, I could probably write a press release. So Eric Owens, who's a fantastic singer, opera singer, and was someone who had been important to me. And he came and talked at Curtis, and as I was a student there. But he mentioned this thing. He said, I have a publicist because I'm getting ready to sing in the ring cycle at the Metropolitan Opera. And something went off, and I said, what's a publicist? Like classical musicians have publicists? I don't, what is this? And I talked to him after, and he said, yeah, this is why I have this is someone who helps me make the most of my career and engagements. And so I called up his publicist and I said, hey, can I have a summer job? And they said, yes, amazingly. So I started to just work and be a part of the other side of creating music. And that took me to eventually Carnegie Hall, where I was the in public PR for Carnegie Hall and their concerts. I ended up creating lots of content and videos, which, as we are here, video is important these days. And I helped Carnegie Hall start that process of digital content and telling the story behind the music that they're putting on stage and the artists that they're putting on stage. And then from there, I decided I wanted to help make those things happen and really produce concerts. So I had the opportunity to go to Los Angeles and work for the LA Phil, which is also part of the Hollywood Bowl. So I was the artistic administrator for the LA Phil for a time, 5 years, and I did part of other things, the Hollywood Bowl classical programming, which is a fantastic and amazing venue. But a reason I got to the Hollywood Bowl is because my mom grew up in Southern California, and one of the really beautiful parts about music in that cycle for me is that my mother, growing up as a Czech immigrant, her grandparents would take her once a year to the Hollywood Bowl, and she would get all dressed up in her and have a picnic and listen to, at that time she saw Zubin Mehta conduct the Hollywood Bowl, the LA Phil at the Hollywood Bowl. And then years later, I got to take my mom to the Hollywood Bowl with me for a concert. So, this way of having that happen, the special moments, and it took me to be a part of it. And I love how music has taken me back to music.
Awesome. Robert, tell us a little bit more about your kind of experiences that led to your kind of where you are now as a musician.
Wow, I'm just so honored to be in this room with so many talented, gifted people that are talented. I love it. And my experiences was really interesting growing up, because I grew up in a house with gospel music, and that's what we listened to a lot. And we used to listen to radio a lot back in the day. And right after the gospel program went off of the radio, the classical portion of that music station's programming came on. And I was just so enthralled by the music that I would hear in the classical music and the Pavarottis and hearing the Ave Marias and different other types of sound, that I knew from the beginning that I would just love just a multitude of a variety of music. And middle school was the thing that got me, though, because I remember at that age, do I really want to sing? Do I want people to really know I sing? Are they going to make fun of me? And I remember hearing the chorus rehearsing outside one day, and I was walking around. It was the beginning of school. We had our new clothes on and pants, and I could hear kids auditioning. And I remember going home and asking my mom, I said, I've really heard, a lot of kids singing, and I think I'd like to be a part of that. And she stopped. I remember her stopping what she did. And she said, if you want to sing, you better do it. You better get into it. And it's so good to have parents that encourage you and to do that, because she spent me, it didn't take long for me to go in the next day and sign up and audition and become a part of the choir. And, once again, getting into high school, we did the district choirs and getting out there and meeting other kids and children. And then, from there going to college. It was just a wonderful journey as I look back with music. And I think other kids just need to be exposed to different types of music. And all I have to do is hear it and give them an opportunity to try it. Whether it's playing an instrument or singing a song, it just makes such a difference, And so it's been a journey for me after going to CCM and performing in some of the roles that I did there. I did Rodolfo and La Boheme at the time. Back in the day, it was great to to be in a leading role and have a lot of fun with that, and met a lot of wonderful people from CCM. And then from there, I stepped away. Life, like I said, got in the way, and it was just good to get back into singing again. And I met you through the Classical Roots Choir, which is a community choir, I think quite a few churches here in Cincinnati. And it was just fun getting back into it. But singing with the May Festival Chorus put it on another level, because I got a chance to meet Dr. Robert Porco and people and audition, and was like, I'm getting back into this again. And it's been so much fun, because I feel like the floodgates have opened up for me with the variety and the types of music that I've been learning and singing in German. And right at this time, we would probably be dealing with some of the aftermath, Nate, of May Festival right now, because we would have had a whole week of just performing and doing a lot of different things. So that's kind of a little bit about me,
Yes, thank you. I'm going to switch gears a little bit now. Bernard, tell us a little bit about what is your favorite thing about your work as a performer? I know, I hate the word favorite. I can never think, but have fun answering the question that I would hate to answer.
I've never been great with favorites. It's hard for me to actually pick a favorite, but I can in this instance. And my favorite thing is being on stage and having that feeling of being really nervous. Like it's almost debilitating. It's almost like, oh my God, I can't do it. And then I force myself to go out and I do it. And over time, I've learned how to take that energy and channel it into something really positive and actually manipulate it and use it to give. Being on stage and giving my performance, giving my love, giving my energy to the audience is the best thing. It's my favorite thing.
I'm so happy you said that. In the boy choir, that's one of the things that we have to learn how to deal with is performance anxiety, nerves. And I always say you're nervous about things because you want to do a good job, and that's a good thing. That use that energy, use that kind of momentum that you get from those nerves. Brian, tell us your favorite thing about being a performer.
Yeah, of course. So my favorite thing is actually probably the constant change. So one of what I do a lot is a lot of concert work. So concert work, you typically fly to a new city and rehearse for 2 or 3 days and then do 2 or 3 concerts and go home. So all of the prep work for those first rehearsals would happen on your own at home and whatnot. But the fun part about that for me is getting to do so many different pieces. And obviously there's staples that I'll come back to, a Bach St. John Passion, a Bach St. Matthew Passion, which is my favorite. And you get to revisit Messiah every year and you get to revisit all of your favorites, but getting to learn all of these new pieces every year, throwing a new piece into the mix and keeping it on your toes. And also along with that constant change, of travel to new places, getting acquainted with possibly even new languages when you're traveling abroad, there's such a community within the music world, and it gets smaller and smaller as you get further into it. And you get to see some of these people that you become family with, and you might only see 1 or 2 on a gig, or you might see 15 of them the next time you travel, but getting to revisit those people and catch up with their life and reconnect. I think those are kind of my favorite things about what I get to do. Obviously, I love the music making aspect of it. Otherwise, I wouldn't do it, but yeah.
Awesome. Jim, why don't you tackle that question? What's your favorite thing about your work?
Yeah, that's a good one. So now that I do, really sports is kind of like the biggest part of my life now, and a big part of what I do is essentially operate as a mascot for the team. I mean, I'll go out and do appearances where I don't sing at all. They just want me there, like Tommy Hawk, the mascot, right? So there's a lot to it, but I'd say from a musical standpoint, one, it's just connecting with an audience, seeing the faces, knowing that you have their attention, that they're being moved by what you're doing, and that they're engaged. When I was singing opera, I think it was more emotional, like about me and my emotions and the cathartic experience, right? Which maybe the kids don't know what cathartic means, but It just means that you get up on stage and you're singing with an orchestra. It's loud and you're putting everything you can into that. And it's like this big primal, but refined, big primal scream, right? Of just like emotion that can just pour out of you. And you're putting, opera is emotion written bigger than life. And music is a wonderful language for that. And so to be immersed in that moment and in that atmosphere, completely focused and just pouring out through your singing and your voice and the physicality of it all, whatever that range of emotions are that you experience in that show. I love that.
Very cool.
The best
So,
life.
say that
The
again.
best tiredness of my life came after those kind of performances.
Yeah, it is such a great feeling because yes, you are tired, you're ready to go home, but it's, you know, that you've done something really meaningful and important, and you, like you said, you can see it on the faces of the audience members. Nate, what's your favorite thing?
My favorite thing is being a part of making something, and I think that's really hard right now. This is also my most challenging thing about my work is when you can't be making and helping others make something. I see myself as a conduit, and I'm a conduit for all of the work that all of the people necessary to create that artistic experience, for the singers, for the musicians. I'm kind of the channel that helps and gives them the tools and supports them. So I think that feeling when there is that performance, which is never over until it's over, which is the idiom, you know, the idea that until someone gets on the plane and Brian goes home after that St. Matthew Passion, it's still not over. But when that moment comes, there's this, and it gets shorter and shorter the longer I do this work, but it's about a 15-second moment of reflection on that. Sometimes it lasts longer, but there's always that 15 seconds of that happened, and this kind of feeling of absorbing that, feeling the kind of satisfaction that comes with that thing having happened, and that putting all the pieces in the right place and allowing people to do what they do so well. And that's not just the musicians doing what they do so well. Some of the most satisfying moments is when the audience, for me, comes along for the ride in a way that's, you know, you have to put faith in the audience and say, are they going to get this? Are they going to understand this? Are they going to behave in the way that's necessary for this moment to have that really special thing that special artistic moments do? And when all of those things, not just someone gives a great performance, but it's given and it's received, that's my favorite thing about the work is experiencing that with everyone.
Yeah.
I agree. So Nate, you started talking a little bit about the most challenging aspect of your work. Let's use that as a way to kind of pivot to that. Robert, what is the most challenging thing about your work as a performer?
I really don't see too many challenges when it comes to singing and music. I was thinking about what Nate was saying previously. About 2 years ago, I had a chance to perform with the CSO during the Bernstein Mass, and met so many wonderful people. And we were doing the street scene, and I was doing the preacher role. And I remember the stage being about 2 or 3 feet right from where we were standing, and the prop that we were standing behind. And the only thing you could see was the music pit in front of you. And I had a little part where I had to actually dance. And if you haven't guessed, I'm a big guy. And I was kind of concerned about this 3-foot footing between where I was and being on the stage, but I had to perform. And it was just like, it was a challenge, but it was fun. We got through it. And you know, we definitely got some kudos for that particular scene in doing that. But it was fun. It was we were making music. We were, you know, and what we were doing wasn't for us, it was for the audience. And there's an energy that comes from that makes you not even think about that. But every now and then I would look down and I would see the orchestra pit, and I'm like, this could make me or break me.
That's hilarious. Jim, what's the most challenging part of your work as a performer?
I would say not being distracted and not ever taking anything for granted. So I've probably done a couple thousand national anthems by now, but very often when you come into a situation, and I do the anthem the same way every time. It's my Big Mac. It's very specific. I'm a national anthem singer. I'm not, like, my favorite anthem is Whitney Houston, right? So she's not an anthem singer. She sang a wonderful anthem in the Super Bowl, but she's not an anthem singer. I'm an anthem singer. I'm told when I, go somewhere, you have a minute and a half to do the anthem, which mine's minute 36 to minute 38. You're not going to cut me off, so live with it. So, but it's true, right? So you know you're going to go out there. You know what your job is, and you're going to do this same thing, and you have to elevate that every time, because first off, you never know who's going to be somewhere. But just, I'll do 60 a year for the Blackhawks. All of them are on regional television at least, and then you have 20-something thousand people inside the stadium as well. So you never know who's going to be there. And then when you take something, you've done it so often, you can start to take it for granted. And I've made that mistake a time or two. And for example, I was singing for at Soldier Field. It was the New Zealand All Blacks, which is the most successful and popular rugby team in the world, against the USA Eagles. So it was a big international event. They hadn't played each other like this before. And I was very excited because the All Blacks do this incredible like Maori war dance before they play every game. It's very cool. If anybody ever want to check that out on YouTube, it's called the haka. So these guys are doing that, and I'm like, man, I don't want them to upstage me. But in Chicago, when I sing, everybody cheers. So I knew it would be good and it would be powerful. Well, I went out there. I wasn't really prepared. I was there with friends. I was talking to them. And then as they got into that haka, they're doing it. I'm looking around, and I just started to get caught up in all the stuff that was going on, and my own desire to be really good, and the fact that I hadn't really prepared correctly because of friends, and just kind of, it's a rugby game. I'd never been to one before. It was a big international event. There's fireworks, there's loud music, there's people dancing, there's all this stuff going on. And the truth is, I've learned, and anybody who's a performer kind of gets it, you're there to do a job. That stuff's not for you. Who just said a minute ago, it's not over till it's over, right? It doesn't matter how many free throws you shoot in your life, until you hit the two that matter, it's not done. Your job's not done. So, so that's it. It's like never, ever taking it for granted, and going out and doing my best with that song, no matter how many times. And the way I can stay motivated with that, there's two things. One is I do like seeing the look on people's faces and how they respond when I sing it. And two is having come to understand the meaning of it and the relationships I've developed with veterans, law enforcement, and people who this has tremendous meaning. And both my parents were World War II vets. Knowing that it matters deeply to people.
Great, thank you. So let's move on to the next question. And I'm so excited about the next question, which is about bizarre moments of your career. So let's start with Bernard. What's the most bizarre moment? Or maybe not what's a bizarre moment that you can tell us about?
Well, I was doing an opera in a small town called Marquette, Michigan, in the Upper Peninsula in Michigan. And it was a beautiful theater, a tiny town, and everyone was so excited to come to the opera. And that day, there was a huge thunderstorm. So we were performing during this thunderstorm, and all of a sudden, in the middle of Act 3, the lights went out. And so we basically performed the last 15 minutes of the opera with flashlights like in our faces, and there were people putting flashlights down into the orchestra pit. But it was so magical. And at the end, everyone erupted in applause, and it was bizarre, but it was really cool.
Awesome. I love that. I'm just thinking about like telling ghost stories and like as an opera singer, right? Awesome. Good times. Brian, tell us about your bizarre moment.
Yeah, I struggled with this question because, I mean, the thing that I remembered was I was singing a Bach B minor up in Montreal, and it was about time for me to sing the beautiful Benedictus towards the end of the entire 2.5 hour performance, and I had just gotten new glasses that week, and did not realize that when you get new plastic frames that I need nose pads apparently, because they slide on my face. And as a performer, when I'm getting into it, I might get a little sweaty or get a little hot or whatever. And I was having issues immediately with the glasses fogging up. But as I started to get nervous, they started sliding down. So I'm trying to sing this tranquil, slow, beautiful piece, and the glasses are just sliding off my face while I'm trying to read the music. And I finally just gave up and I took the glasses off in the middle of the aria because it just wasn't going to happen.
Oh, that's hilarious. Oh my goodness. I can imagine this. Yeah. Nate, tell us about your most bizarre moment.
Yeah, this is so hard, especially sharing it publicly on the internet. I just think at the Hollywood Bowl, I would say there were an inordinate number of celebrities, and that idea of the kind of how celebrities are human is something that you really get to experience. And the bizarre ones aren't because the people were bizarre, although there are many bizarre people in the world generally, but just the moment of realization that I had in some of these times is like, that's Misty Copeland. To me, that's amazing. Like, now I'm having dinner with Misty Copeland. Now I'm sitting next to, all of these people. And one of the coolest ones, celebrity kind of things, was Kobe Bryant, who came to rehearse Dear Basketball, which is a short film. Actually, it's on YouTube. Go check it out. A short film that he made when retiring that John Williams scored. So John Williams is conducting. Kobe came, and it's a 5-minute letter that he wrote, which is animated with this beautiful film and beautiful music. And he came 2 minutes before the rehearsal at 2, and the concert's at 8 o'clock that night. And he did his part perfectly, beautifully, in fact. But then he stayed around for 3 hours and took pictures with every member of the orchestra and signed whatever he wanted him to sign, had conversations with people. And that's special and weird, but it was also bizarre to just be standing there being like, that's, who are these people? Another one of those, somehow early in my career, got assigned to escorting Alec Baldwin around Tanglewood. And we pulled into a parking lot, got out of the car, and standing in the parking lot behind the stage are Yo-Yo Ma and Emmanuel Axe, who know each other and are friends. And then and they know who I am. And I'm in a position where I introduce Alec Baldwin to Yo-Yo Ma and Emmanuel Axe. And then I'm standing there with these 3 people being like, what am I doing here? This is so weird. So there's some moments like that. They're also kind of bizarre, just work moments. I remember one, to make it short, which is we had a youth orchestra convention in Los Angeles, and we had to get all of these youth orchestra members to a party that was thrown for them. And I think they were Swedish, and the language was an issue. And we had these buses, and we specifically ordered small buses because the roads up in hills in LA are very narrow. And then they came, and there was this moment of someone texted me, the buses are huge. So now we had hundreds of youth orchestra members that we had to get up to the top of the hill for this party that was thrown in their honor. So we just started calling Ubers and taxis, and we getting our cars and just shuttling all of these kids, young adults up with their instruments to this party. And that was bizarre, just feeling like, what am I doing here? I feel like we're climbing a mountain. So you never know where music is going to take you. There's some strange things that happen.
It's so true. Jim, tell us about a bizarre moment.
One that comes to mind that might mean I'm a heartless individual was when I was an apprentice out of Santa Fe Opera, and we were doing Countess Martha, and all the apprentices, we'd fill up the chorus, for the operas during the season. And there was a scene where, you know, we're all sitting around tables, this outdoor cafe, presumably on stage. And one of the other chorus members was the waiter. And so as we're going through, he would have to come by and give us our champagne, and we would always drink it really fast and then tell him, come on, garçon, garçon, you know, kind of snap our fingers at him. And we kind of abused him, you know, through the whole rehearsal process, kind of making fun of him or whatever, you know, like, Carlos, come on, hurry up. What is it, you know? And so opening night came, and he brought us our champagne per usual. And he sat each glass down in front of us with this like really mischievous smile on his face, because he had put a goldfish in every single glass at our table. He sat down with a goldfish in there. And so and we couldn't keep a straight face, but you're supposed to all stand up and do a toast. And so yeah, some of us drank our goldfish just as, just as a dare. You know, it was like that dare. It's like, will you do it? It's like, yeah, you didn't get me, buddy. I'm going to get you, you know?
Right.
Anyway.
Wow, drinking goldfish.
What's that?
I said drinking goldfish definitely qualifies as bizarre, for sure. Fun. Robert, do you have a bizarre moment?
Nothing that I can tell on Facebook. I mean, on YouTube or whatever.
How about memorable? Any memorable moments? Okay. So we have one question that's come in from our audience, and we'll just kind of go lightning round with this question. If you'd chosen another path in your life, if it wasn't music, what was it going to be? Brian.
I wanted to be a weatherman.
Yes.
I was obsessed with meteorology in middle school, and I did the green screen news in high school, which was probably the dorkiest thing looking back now, and I'm embarrassed about it, but it's all okay. So yeah, if I wasn't a musician, I would probably be in weather.
Green screen skills are coming in handy more than ever these days.
So
sure,
true.
I'm in the Aronoff Center. Yes, I am, for sure. No. Robert, if not music, what were you thinking about pursuing?
I growing up, counseling, that field really appeals to me. And my wife is actually into counseling right now. So we have a lot of wonderful conversations, and sometimes I'm her patient, but it's good.
It's always nice to have a best patient right now. Jim, what about you?
Well, my second degree was in psychology. However, I recognized early on I didn't have the patience for it, or empathy, which you might imagine since I swallowed a live goldfish. So anyway, in retrospect, I really enjoy business and kind of the strategy of it, and I enjoy the markets and economics, and I think I could have really gotten into that. In fact, I have more in the last couple of years. So.
And also an important skill for performers, really. You know, that's one of those things where you just kind of have to learn how to make your money work for you, especially if it's not coming in regularly. You know, it's coming in kind of random intervals.
One of the big transitions for me, and I think every musician, is when you come out of school and you get out there, you have to start to understand that you are building business relationships, that you yourself are a product, and you need to be able to market yourself. You need to be able to network and follow up with people. You need to be able to negotiate, not just say, hey, I can sing pretty, take care of me. You have to be able to go out and represent yourself. And
that's good.
People who know that as a individual artist have big advantages over people who do not.
For sure. Bernard, if not music, what was it going to be?
I would be a nurse. I would, my mom is a nurse, and I've always been interested, and I watch lots of YouTube videos of surgeries and different things. So I would definitely, but I don't think I had the patience to go through medical school, but I don't know why I'm saying that, because I was in school for like 12 years. But music won, so here I am.
Very cool. And Nate, if not music, what?
I don't know. There are things that I wish that I could have done, and I actually loved baseball, and I was pretty close to pursuing minor league baseball at some point and had that decision. But I think really for me, I can't do anything without people, because that's what really drives me. So I would be interested in behavioral sciences, social sciences, things that kind of give me more insight into how individuals and also groups of people act and think, because that's something that I think is just fascinating and important to me.
For sure. We have another question coming in from our audience. If you had a few words of advice for the boys who might be considering a career in music, what would it be? Robert, let's start with you.
I think Nate kind of hit on it earlier today. He said it takes conviction and drive to want to move to perform and do the things you want to do. Knowing your craft, knowing what you like to do, and just staying true to it. Learning your repertoire, being ready. You might be called like that, and you need to be prepared to sing and do what you do well, and just staying true to your music and to your craft.
Cool. Brian, what would you say?
Definitely listen to your parents when they tell you to practice. Don't shrug off like you might be the most talented in high school, but you've got a lot of work to do. And it's worth it, and it pays off, and you will soon figure out how to enjoy practicing. And similarly, when in college, everything that you're going to take will apply to something in your life. And so while you think that there is a class that may not be for you at that time, or a language that you're struggling with, put a little extra effort into those things, because you never know when in your career or in your life that those skills will become needed.
Well, thank you. Bernard?
I would say to make sure to learn the practical things, like how to do your taxes, and possibly as you grow up and get older, take a business class or a marketing class so that you can really know how to be the best artist that you can be on the artistic side, but as well on the business side.
Cool. Jim?
Become the best you can be, which means find a teacher who really helps you become better, not just a teacher that helps you change, drift. You actually have to become better. And to that end, you find that kind of teacher, you hold on to them. And then you learn to identify who you can trust in life and only listen to them. So here's a number just for an idea. 1 out of 20 you trust, maybe less. The other 19 who are running their mouths, you just cloth ears, don't listen. Find the people you can trust, and they are not going to be the people who tell you what you want to hear. They're going to be the people who make you better. Big difference between those two things.
Awesome. Thank you. Nate?
Yeah, I think Brian and Jim hit on a couple of things. I think you're the chairperson of your own board, right? So you surround yourself with those people who can help you, but at the end of the day, you decide what advice you listen to and what path you take, and you have to know that it comes down to you. And I think the other thing is that idea of studying things. For me, it was studying music. I didn't end up being a singer, and that idea of the classes that I were taking that benefit me were the ones that were entirely about music, little tiny parts of music at some points. Counterpoint. How do I use counterpoint in my life? I do, and I think there was a moment when I left and decided that I didn't want to be an opera singer, where I questioned what skills do I have? What can I do with all this stuff? And I can, without getting into it, I can tell you it's all just the other way valuable to have that and use it later. All of this music study is more applicable than you think. And that idea of being the you are driving this, that idea of those skills, those basic kind of things that everyone needs to learn benefit you, taxes and how to negotiate and understanding what contracts mean and how they work. But even above that, thinking the people who are successful are certainly talented and are certainly able to sing in tune and do all of those things really well, but they're the people who you want to work with. And the biggest thing that I tell people is in my position, in directors and choreographers and conductors, they're going to hire and give opportunities to the people that they as people want to be spending time with, right? You know, there's certain things you have to be able to do and you look for certain things, but if you're a great cast member and a great colleague and a kind person, that also really goes a long way.
Yeah, I so agree with that. There may or may not be one more question coming in, but I'll just kind of riff off of that for a minute while we're waiting to see. You know, Bernard and I met in college, Brian and I met in college, and you just never know where people will end up. You know, I couldn't have predicted, you know, 10, 15 years ago. Yikes. That's terrifying now. Anyway, I couldn't have predicted that, you know, that down the road I would be directing this organization and have the opportunity to invite these people who were my friends. And we were just stupid kids in college, really. You know what I mean? Making the best of the life that we had there. And so just that point about taking care of people and treating people well is so important, because you never know. Robert and I met in the elevator at the Aronoff Center, and here we are chatting here.
That's right.
Right, Nate and I met because we were hoping that the boy choir would get to do a Mahler 3 with the orchestra. Sadly, that happened. That was scheduled for the time of coronavirus.
We'll do it. We'll do it again.
Yes, yay!
Absolutely.
And all of YouTube knows now, so
Yeah.
I will hold you
No.
to it.
No problem. Thanks for doing it. That's okay.
yeah,
You're
course.
committed too.
I am. It's true. Right. Signing it. Okay. Yeah. So you just never know where you'll run into people and how you can help each other down the road. Well, folks, I think that kind of wraps it up. I want to thank each of our panelists for joining us and speaking so openly and candidly about your careers. We hope to see you on stage sometime soon when that's a thing again. And we thank our audience for joining us for our first Boychoir Banter. If you're interested in more about the Cincinnati Boy Choir, cincinnatiboychoir.org is where you find more information. And if you're in the greater Cincinnati area and you know a boy who loves to sing and would love the company of other boys who love to sing, again, cincinnatiboychoir.org, you can find more audition information. Our next Boy Choir Banter session looks at the kind of the other side of the music thing, and that's the people who write the music. So the composer's perspective. So we'll be talking with Steve Malloy and Tom Merrill about composing, arranging, what is that world? So thank you all so much. That next installment of Boy Choir Banner will be on June 18th, also at 6 o'clock. Thanks again for watching. Thanks to our panelists, and have a great night, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Take care.
Nice to meet everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.